Welcome to my Zul'farrak dungeon guide. This guide is meant to supplement my 1 to 60 Alliance leveling guide. However, because Alliance Zul'farrak quests are basically identical to Horde quests, both factions can use this guide. For Zul'farrak, you'll want your group to ideally be around level 45, and you want to make sure that whoever is tanking is wearing an appropriate gear set. For example, a warrior should be wearing all plate and not wearing too much mail or any leather. AoE classes are also extremely desired, as is CC. Firstly, let's go over quest roundup. In Gadgetzan, you can grab the quests Troll Temper, the Divinomatic Rod, and Scarab Shells.
Time is money, friend. Hurry back.
The quest Tiara of the Deep is a bit out of the way from Tabitha in the middle of Dustwallow Marsh. It's recommended that when you go to get this quest, you get the Breadcrumb quest first from any mage trainer, as the Breadcrumb quest gives a lot of experience, and you can find it from the mage trainers in Undercity, Thunderbluff, Orgrimmar, Ironforge, or Stormwind. Next is the quest gahz'rilla. It's easy to pick up in Shimmering Flats, but the quest requires you to kill a boss, gahz'rilla, inside the dungeon that can only be summoned by having at least one person in your group possess the Mallet of Zul'farrak, which is a little bit tricky to obtain. To obtain the Mallet, you'll need to go to the hinterlands and kill the elite Quyagi the Keeper on top of the altar of Zul. She is a 50 elite, so it'll require a strong group to take her down. From her, you can loot the sacred Mallet, and to turn it into the Mallet of Zul'farrak, you'll need to climb to the top of Jintha Alor in eastern hinterlands and use the Mallet at the altar at the very top. Jintha Alor is filled with elites, so the ideal way to do this is to just corpse hop up to the altar and then hearth out. Then there's the quest, the Prophecy of Masharu. This quest is a chain from Steamweedle Port that starts as the quest Screecher Spirit. It asks you to go to Feralis and use a wand on dead Screechers, and once you've done it, you'll get the Zul'farrak quest. If you've been following my leveling guide, you should have this quest done already. Finally, there is an Alliance-only quest, Necrum's Medallion, that starts as a quest chain from the Witherbark cages in the Hinterlands. After completing the first two parts in Hinterlands, it'll send you to the Blasted Lands where the quest turns into the Zul'farrak quest. Fitting this quest into your questing path is a bit tedious, but it ultimately rewards 10,000 experience, so it's your call whether to grab it or not. Once you have your quests and a group with a tank and a healer, you are ready to head into the dungeon. As you enter Zul'farrak, you'll notice it is an outdoor dungeon, so it is possible to mount up in the dungeon. There are also many tricks and skips to get around a lot of the trash in this dungeon, but because you'll likely be in a group with people that have the quest Troll Temper, it's better to kill as many trolls as possible, because Troll Temper requires 20 per person, and a 5-man party will need to kill 100 trolls. Your first boss destination is Antu Sul. To get to him, it's quite a trek through various types of troll mobs as well as some wandering neutral scarabs. First, the scarabs, they drop the shells for the quest Scarab Shells, but there are a lot of them close together later in the dungeon, so it's best to just ignore them and try to avoid hitting them with AoEs like Demo Shout as you clear inside. The trolls themselves have many unique abilities, so as you are clearing, it's important to pay attention to what types of trolls you are fighting and deal with them appropriately. The first few packs will contain 3 types: Shadowcasters, Blood Drinkers, and Witch Doctors. The Witch Doctors should be your first kill priority. They will cast heals and drop greater healing wards that heal all nearby allies, so be sure to interrupt them and destroy their wards when they spawn them. Next are the Shadowcasters. They like to spam Shadow Bolts and Shadow Word Pain. They hit pretty hard, so try to interrupt them and focus them down second. In addition, they have by default a magic armor on them that buffs their armor by 500, so if you are a priest or a shaman, be sure to hit them with the Dispel for your melee, as it's the same as hitting them with 2 Sunder armors and makes them die even faster. Then we have the Blood Drinkers. They hit pretty hard, but more importantly, they have a leech ability and decently high armor. They'll die the slowest and need to be focused down to get through their leech effectively. It's also a good idea to use any healing reduction abilities available on them, such as Mortal Strike. As you make your way down the first walkway, be aware of wandering and patrolling mobs. Be sure to pull packs back and be safe and use CC if possible on the bigger pulls, and also be aware of the fleeing mechanic of the trolls. Don't let them run and grab some of their friends, or you can quickly get overwhelmed. Eventually you'll arrive at a large room with a fountain that forks left and right, and at this time you'll start seeing trolls named Shadow Hunters. The Shadow Hunters are pretty brutal as they have a Hex CC ability that works just like Polymorph that needs to be dispelled. It's instant cast, so it cannot be interrupted, and getting it on your healer can mean a lot of trouble, so be cautious about pulling 2 Shadow Hunters at once, and try to CC them if possible. They will use ranged attacks until you get them into melee or line of sight pull them. Occasionally, in place of the Shadow Hunter patrols that roam around, you may instead find a rare spawn troll named gahz'rilla that drops leather bracers with lots of agility. He can also respawn in place of the patrol, so it's possible to find and kill him more than once per run, but make sure to have an eye out for him and kill him if you can. Once the fountain path is clear, make your way along the east path and hug the left wall until your group can traverse north. It's here you'll find a large room filled with scarabs and the first mini-boss, Theka the Martyr. Theka himself doesn't do much special except a disease debuff. Just be wary of using AoE abilities while fighting him, like Whirlwind or Demo Shout. When Theka the Martyr gets low HP, he will become immune to all physical damage and shadow damage, which can suck if your group lacks spell damage. Luckily, the buff isn't permanent, so you can just wait it out by kiting him if that's the case. When he dies, be sure to loot the first tablet of the Prophecy of Masharu, and then you'll be safe to AoE down the scarabs. The scarabs, even though they're not elite, can hit pretty hard if you pull too many, so if your group isn't AoE heavy, just take your time with them until everyone in your party has all the shells they need to complete the scarab shell quest. From here, the first real boss is to the east through the broken wall. The boss, Antu-Sul, is hiding in the back of his cave, but his aggro radius is pretty massive and he's a tough fight, so make sure you cautiously kill all the enemies outside the cave first, pulling them from a distance. Once it's clear, pull the boss and be prepared for the adds. He will send out a wave of basilisks that are non-elite, and then he will send out a wave of basilisks that are elite. For the non-elite wave, make sure you focus and kill them down before DPSing the boss more, and for the second wave, try to CC the elite basilisks or off-tank them or kite them with hamstring or piercing howl. You should not try to face tank the boss and all of the elite basilisks. You will be taking way too much damage for a level 40 healer to heal you through. In addition to his pets, he'll constantly summon totems. He has an Earth Grab totem which will root everybody, and a Fire Nova totem that explodes for AoE fire damage if it's not destroyed after a few seconds. The totems die very quickly, so it's just a matter of making sure you kill them before they do anything detrimental to your group. Once he goes down, literally everything he drops is useful for warriors, so you can't go wrong with killing him. He has 2 good one-handers for dual wield DPS to use with Thrash Blade later on, a nice plate gloves, or a necklace, so good luck on your roll. Make your way back to the Scarab room once he's dead, and then the next stop will be heading north. As you make your way up the north path, be aware of the side room to the left filled with enemies. If you have low level party members, they may aggro them, so hug the right wall if possible. When you reach the room filled with shallow graves, you should find on an altar a friendly witch doctor named Zul'farrak. It is possible to skip this room and this boss, but he drops a nice healing staff and cloth gloves that your party members may want. In order to make Zul'farrak attackable, you just need to walk up to him, but when you do, he will possibly awaken undead elites from the nearby graves if any are remaining. You can deal with this by either clearing all the shallow graves first, but these mobs don't give experience in some versions and patches of the game, so it can be a huge waste of time. The best bet is to just burn the boss down as fast as possible and deal with any elites he spawns, and be sure to kill his totems that he spawns at the same time that will summon skeletons. You can easily get overwhelmed by him, but for the most part he's easy as long as your group is correctly leveled and handle the adds by kiting them or CCing them. The next stop is further north, where the dungeon will open up and show a large staircase to the top of an altar. The top of the altar will start an event, so it's a good idea to clear out most of the mobs down below on the ground before you go up the altar. Just be cautious of the fleeing mechanic and any packs that have 2 shadow hunters in them, and you should be okay. At the top of the altar, you'll meet the Sand Fury Executioner. Make sure to face him away and not stand near if necessary to avoid his cleave damage, and he's nothing special. When he dies, he should drop an Executioner's key for one party member. Make sure they loot the key and use it on the cages behind him to start the Zul'farrak event. The event will release several NPCs from the cages that will help you, and it will also spawn tons of trolls at the base of the altar, so be sure your whole party is at the top of the altar before the event starts. If your group stays up top, the trolls will trickle up by themselves. Make sure to utilize the NPCs to help you fight. They have a lot of AoE damage and they heal each other. The NPCs can almost handle the event by themselves, but you want to make sure Sergeant Bly survives to the end, as does the Goblin, as he has the Divinomatic Rod and the Goblin will help you get to the last boss. As a tank, prioritize getting aggro on the Cretins as they are elite and the other mobs don't hit that hard. The Orc does decent AoE, so make sure to keep him safe as best as possible. The trolls will spawn in multiple waves. The final wave will have 2 named trolls that will stay at the bottom, and the friendly NPCs will eventually start moving down the altar towards them. Be sure to make full use of the NPCs to kill Necrom and Cesses, and focus fire one of them down first. Once Necrom and Cesses die, make sure to loot Necrom for his medallion, and the NPCs should stand around. If you are lucky, Cesses can drop a polearm that isn't terrible for replacing Whirlwind Axe. Its top end is about the same, but it's faster with a proc and can get 5% crit from talents. Warriors are basically at the mercy of RNG for what weapons they get, and though the polearm isn't ideal, I'd still grab it if it drops. Before you talk to the NPCs, make sure to get full HP and tell the Goblin to blow open the door to the last boss. When you talk to Bly, ask for the Divinomatic Rod and he'll attack with any of the friendly NPCs that survive, so focus the female dwarf healer down first, then any other damage dealers, and leave Bly for last. This fight can be tough, so use CC and make sure to kill them in the right order. Once it's done, loot Bly for the Divinomatic Rod and you'll be able to make your way south to the newly opened path up to the last bosses. When you get up the ramp, cautiously pull the basilisks and snakes to make sure it's clear. Be aware that the 4 snakes, though they are far apart, are linked in a single pull, so be sure to kite or use CC on them to avoid face tanking all 4 at once. Then you are clear to the boss. When you engage the boss, be sure to focus Ruzulu first, as when you damage the Chief Ukors a bit, he will enrage and start hitting super fast like a truck. So don't be shy about using cooldowns on him and kiting if possible to lower your damage intake and avoid his cleave. Overall though, it's a fairly easy fight. You should hope for the pauldrons or the staff, or potentially the second sword for the epic sword if you got the first one, but once they're dead you aren't quite done with the dungeon yet. Head back down the ramp and this time take the southwestern path. Eventually this path will open up into a large room with a pool in it. You don't need to clear into this large room though. Patrolling around the pool is a named mob, Hydromancer Velratha. She can be pulled by herself if you are patient, but she spams Shadow Bolt, so be sure to use the Archway to LOS pull her back to your group and kill any wards that she spawns. Once she is dead, loot her for Tiara of the Deep and the second tablet of Macharu. With that, the only thing left is gahz'rilla. If you have someone in your group with the Mallet, or you have it, which you should have it if you've been following my leveling guide, then keep your group under the Archway and sneak to the gong at the south end of the pool and ring it. After a few seconds, gahz'rilla will come out of the water. He does a freeze ability and slows, but the most deadly thing he does is a super high knock-up. The best way to deal with him is to pull gahz'rilla into the Archway and stand underneath it. This will prevent fall damage from his knockup, and once you have that under control, he's fairly easy. When he's dead, loot him to complete his quest, and once your entire group has all of the troll temper they need, you are done with Zul'farrak. Congratulations! Make sure to run around and turn in the quests at your earliest convenience, but as for the Tiara of the Deep and Necrum's Medallion, if you are following my leveling guide, don't worry, I will bring up when to turn those two in. So you are now ready to jump back into my leveling guide wherever you left off. Until then, I am booping out.
I'm out of ammo.
Boop.